really matters? That might be the most important question you can ask. So let's talk about it. Welcome to What Really Matters podcast, Everyday Spirituality with Karen Wyatt. Today I'm going to talk with you about how to cultivate love in times of fear. And I would certainly say here early in the month of March in the year 2022, we are certainly facing a lot of fear all around us. We're still coming out of a pandemic that we've been in for 2 years. There is a war going on in Ukraine and a threat of potentially World War III, nuclear war that could affect all of our lives in a huge way. And we're still facing climate change crisis on our planet that we don't really see a solution for. We also have social, political, racial unrest happening all around us and injustice in the world that breaks our hearts every day. The images that we see on the news and in social media are devastating. We are overwhelmed in so many ways, I think, with the pain of the world and this planet right now, and also feel helpless because there isn't very much in our day-to-day lives that we can do to be helpful. Of course, we can live as carefully as we can on the planet, trying not to waste resources, trying not to pollute, but on the other hand, many of the crises happening feel so far away from us that it doesn't seem like there's much that we can do directly. And so no wonder we can be overwhelmed with fear. The unknown is confronting us right before our eyes, and there are very few answers available to us. So this is the moment when what we need in our daily lives is more love. We need to be able to practice love. And I'm talking about practice being in a state of love. Love is not an emotion. It's not a feeling. It's not just something that we do. Love is a state of being. It's an energy level, a vibration that resonates from us. We know that love is more powerful than hatred. We know that love can transcend fear, but the challenging part comes when we're already in a state of fear. Fear is the greatest obstacle to love. So we have to figure out how we can manage our fear and maintain a state of love as much as possible during these challenging times. And that's what I want to talk about today. How can we help ourselves get into a state of love more frequently during the day and rise above the fear that's all around us and inundating us every day? So as I talk about this, understand that to be in a state of love requires a daily practice because there will be triggers for our fear all around us, constantly coming at us. So we have to constantly strengthen our ability to be in that state of love. The news, social media, what we see happening in our communities, what things our neighbors tell us, our family members and friends, we're surrounded by opportunities to become fearful. So we have to intentionally and consistently work at being in this state of love. And the more we can stay in the vibration and the energy field of love, the better we'll be able to cope with the stress we're under. We'll have a positive impact on the world, and the more easily we can keep ourselves in that place of love and overcome and transcend the fear within us that threatens us from inside. So I want to talk a little bit about what that requires. And I have some resources that I'm using, things that I'm reading right now that have been really helpful to me. So I mentioned before this book by Valarie Kaur called See No Stranger, a memoir and manifesto of revolutionary love. So her notion of revolutionary love is really inspiring me. And that's something I feel like we need right now. So I'll be talking about that and quoting from her a little bit. I also have a quote from Father Richard Rohr, who's a Franciscan priest who's really teaching about mystical Christianity in a very beautiful way that I'm resonating with lately. And then also a suggestion from Roger Moore, who's a hypnotherapist, in his book, Becoming the Greatest Expression of You. I'm reading it right now because I'll be interviewing Roger Moore for my podcast fairly soon. So those are my references that I'm using for this episode. So I wanted to give them credit right from the start, and then I will mention them again as I go through this talk. So one of the first things we need to do when we're trying to keep ourselves in a state of love is to think about balance and keeping ourselves in balance as much as possible. And that could mean balance on a physical level of just getting enough sleep and enough exercise and eating properly during this time. Those are all really important. But I want to talk a little bit about balancing the information that we take in during the day. I think it's really tempting to go on and listen to the news or read the news and take in social media to hear everything that's happening in the world right now, because we want to stay up to date. And there's nothing wrong with that, but we should be careful about how much time we spend reading and listening to things that make us feel fearful. And are there things we can do to counteract the fear and to balance it out? Listening to things that have a more positive impact for us and that help us get back to that more positive place. So think about that. What is it that you're consuming in terms of information? And for one thing, try to find the most reliable, truthful sources of information you can, but then also balance the fear-triggering information with love-triggering information if you can, so that every day you're always taking in something that's positive, that gets you back to a positive, healthy, love-filled state of mind. So that's one reason I'm reading the things that I'm reading right now, because they're filling me up with positive ideas, positive intention, and also inspiring more love in my heart. So I recommend that to you as well. Give some thought to that balance and how you can restore the balance or tilt it even slightly toward the positive if you can. And so the second suggestion is that you really do have to commit to the practice of love and make a choice every day that you are going to work on being in a state of love every day, and understand that it's hard and we have to be persistent and consistent with our practice. It isn't just going to happen automatically. So we need to wake up in the morning and remind ourselves, today I want to be in a state of love. Today I want to rise above my fear and stay in a place of love. So that becomes a daily choice. And of course, we'll fall short of it often, perhaps in the beginning, especially we will succumb to our fear, and we will have moments of terror and despair and anger and bitterness and all of those things and fear. But we have to be able to every day come back to our intention and say, today I will rise above this and I will get myself into a place of love. So I wanted to give you a little image of love that I got from Valarie Kaur, from her idea of revolutionary love. And she says that love has three components. I need to love myself, I need to be able to love others, And I need to be able to love my opponents. She uses that word opponents for those people who seem to have different aims in life than I do, and even people who may be against me, who may be wanting to hurt me or wanting to hurt people that I care about. She calls them opponents, which I think is a gentle, kind way of looking at people who are different from us. So love of myself is always where I believe we have to begin. Loving others can be those people in our circle, in our family, our friends, our neighborhood. So those are the people in our lives who are fairly easy for us to love. Beyond that, we see our opponents, the people who are challenging for us to feel love toward. But Valarie emphasizes that we have to be able to love all three, ourselves, others, and our opponents, in order to have complete love within us. And I really like thinking of it that way. Now, obviously, loving our opponents, the people who it feels as if are against us, is going to be our greatest challenge. And this image came to my mind that we can look at it as a set of concentric circles. And in the very center of all those circles is myself. And I begin there every day. I begin thinking about, how do I love myself today? When I love myself completely. That means embracing my shadow side, embracing my failures, my weaknesses, the things I don't really like about myself, and being willing to accept those things about myself. So we start there each day in the beginning of the circle, and then we focus on, how do I expand my love? And can I expand my love, first to the people closest to me? That's our closest inner circle, those people in our family and our closest friends who are around us. There's another circle of people, our neighbors, our community, and then our state, our nation, our world. Like, those circles keep expanding and expanding as we work on our state of love. We focus on having a bigger and bigger circle of love that we expand. And in the outer circle, or maybe even outside our circles, are all the people that we think of as opponents, we think of as being against us, people who have tried to harm us, people who may be doing harm to us right now, people who don't like us. Those are the people that we have to learn how to show love toward. So one thing that Valarie says is to see no stranger, that no human being is a stranger. No human being is not connected to us. We're connected to all other people. And she says to think this to yourself: you are a part of me I do not yet know. So when we see or hear about someone and their behavior feels repulsive to us, our immediate response is, I don't like that. I don't feel good about that. I don't like that person. If we can have the thought in our minds, that person is a part of me I do not yet know. They are connected to me. All of humankind is connected. All of life is connected. And I really like this idea, because those people who appear the most negative in our world around us, we can think of, if we think of them as actually a part of me that I do not yet know, they may represent my shadow. They may represent what is hidden within me as part of the human collective. They might represent my own hatred, my own anger, my own bitterness, my own ability to be cruel to other people, parts of myself that I don't really want to look at or think about or believe are there. But those people who I see as my opponents, when I realize they represent some part of me that I am not yet familiar with, I have to allow them to be a part of this huge circle of mine, and understand that as I'm working on loving, I will work toward someday figuring out how can I have positive regard for those people? How can I love them? But I don't have to be there right now. I don't have to immediately extend my circle of love to include all of the people that I see as hurtful in my life and in the world in general. So remember that we don't have to have all the answers right now, and we don't have to be capable of the biggest, greatest love right now either. We're in a process of growing our ability to love. But I like having this vision in mind that I do need to keep expanding my circle. And when I can expand my circle to people that I don't like, if I can expand my circle of love, that actually helps me on the inside to expand my ability to embrace my own shadow and to learn how to love what's inside of me that I dislike about myself. So as the outer ability to love those outside of us, the outer circle grows, so does our ability to go deeper within ourselves to extend that very same love to our own weaknesses and failures, our own shadow. And Valarie does say that we don't have to legitimize people who are doing bad things in the world. We do have to acknowledge that they're human and they're part of humanity, part of how human beings express themselves in the world. So we grant them humanity, but not legitimacy. And so there is a way at some point in time in the future when we get there that we can extend love to people who are doing harm, but not what someone I read called it, not idiot compassion, but fierce love, love that holds people accountable, love that seeks justice and seeks goodness and what is right in the world. So not love that just looks the other way and says, oh, fine, do whatever you do. No, love that demands answers and holds people accountable for their actions. So that's powerful love. That is fierce and fearless love. And Richard Rohr, I really liked this. Richard Rohr wrote, "The best criticism of the bad is the practice of the better." So what I like about that as well, if we focus our energy primarily on our own shadow, how do I transcend my badness, my mistakes, my weaknesses, my flaws? How do I transcend that? How do I become a better and better person and live my life better and better? We're actually helping the collective. We're helping all of humanity. We're making things better a little bit at a time from our own circle of our own lives. So when we focus our energy on simply trying to embrace our own shadow, trying to become the best people we can be, we will actually be helping the collective shadow for the world. So we don't have to try to change the people that we feel are doing harm in the world. We change the harm that is within us. That's where we begin, and that's how we end up changing the world. Now, Valarie is also an activist. She goes out in the world and she engages in protests and she teaches and speaks and talks to people, which are really powerful ways of being in the world. And some of us might be inspired to take action like that as well. Others of us may feel, I'm here at home working on my love practice, changing myself as much as possible, donating money to causes, supporting and amplifying causes that I care about, but not so much being in the world as an activist. So I want to talk about a few specific tools. All of these are things I've talked about before, but things that you can use to help get yourself into a state of love and transcend the state of fear. And so these might be things you start practicing every day. The first, I've talked about this a lot, is just using your breath, deep breathing. That's one of the best ways to overcome anxiety, the physical presence of anxiety in your body and to elicit a relaxation response. And this is from Roger Moore's book. I mentioned Becoming the Greatest Expression of You. He talks about vagus breathing to stimulate the vagus nerve. Put one hand over your navel so that you can feel your abdomen expand when you take long, slow, deep breaths. And you breathe in for a count of 3, hold for 3, and then out for 5. And take several breaths like that. That stimulates the vagus nerve, helps you stimulate the relaxation response in your body, and it will help slow down your pulse and lower your blood pressure and get you out of a state of anxiety if you're beginning to feel that. So remember, deep breathing can be your tool at any time if you're starting to feel overwhelmed or feeling in despair and spiraling downward in fear. Stop for a moment and just do this simple deep breathing practice that will help you get your physical body more relaxed and your mind more focused and take you out of that place of overemphasizing fear. So remember that deep breathing is always there for you as a tool, but you might also practice it a few times a day when you first wake up in the morning, before you go to bed at night. Just even if you're not feeling fear at the time, just use some deep breathing to help you remember how great a tool it is. And the more you do it, the more your body responds quickly to get into that relaxation state. So use deep breathing. And the second tool is to remember to be in the present moment. And deep breathing is one of the best ways to get into the present moment. If you find yourself getting lost in worrying about what's going to happen, what will happen tomorrow, what will happen next, or feeling angry or upset about something that has already happened in the past, you may need to come right into the present moment, right here, right now. Stop wherever you are. Look around you and remind yourself, I'm not there. Tomorrow hasn't happened yet. And yesterday is over with. I'm right here. I'm right here in this moment, right now. And the best thing I could do right now is to experience love in this very moment. That's the best thing I can do. So get yourself back into the present moment. And again, deep breathing is one way to help you become fully present in this moment and remind yourself, I can't change the past. I can't really change much about the future. I can only change me. I can only work on me and the state that I'm in right now in that moment. But in fact, when you do that work in the present moment, you are actually healing the past and you are actually putting out positive energy and vibrations that will have an impact on the future. So stop worrying and regretting and get in the present moment and focus on love in the present moment. And next is the heart opening practice, which also goes along with deep breathing, which is simply to place one hand over your heart as you're taking deep breaths. And on the in-breath, imagine that pure love is pouring in through the top of your head down into your heart. And this love that you're breathing in is causing your heart space to expand and to grow warmer. The love is like lighting everything up inside your chest. It's becoming warm to the touch. It's filling up with more and more beautiful light and love. So as you breathe in that love, you feel this expansion in your chest and you feel your heart opening. And when it seems like you're completely filled with love, then you begin on each exhale to focus on radiating the love out from you. And again, visualize it in these concentric circles, like ripples in a pond that are growing and expanding out from your heart, reaching out and touching everyone around you. So as you continue this practice on the inhale, you're still breathing light and love into your heart. There's an infinite supply. You never run out. Your heart is just full and overflowing. And on every exhale, you are pushing that love out so that it radiates in larger and larger circles and goes everywhere around you. That's a really nice practice you can do every day. Again, maybe when you wake up in the morning or the middle of the day sometime, but you can also stop sometime when you feel yourself getting angry or starting to feel overwhelmed with some negative emotion to just work on this heart opening exercise. So one of the next things that I learned from Valarie Kaur's book is to remember to wonder. And I really like that she used this word. And she says when you're contemplating another person, a stranger that you have, who's a part of you that you have not yet met, to get into a state of wonder and wonder what is it like to be that person, because that can open your mind and your heart a little bit to be more accepting of that person. But I think wonder you can also apply to yourself. You can also stop and just wonder, why do I feel so afraid right now? Why is it that I react this way? Like, what is it about me, my personality, or what kind of wounds am I carrying that are causing me to react in that way? So wonder is this state of really healthy curiosity that takes us out of our ego-induced state of believing that we know how things really are, that we know why someone thinks that way. We know exactly who they are and how they are. It puts us back into a state of curiosity where we admit that we don't know everything. We don't have all the answers. So we might wonder, why is this happening? Why is humanity unfolding in this way at this time? Why is it happening? And be curious about it and not assume that you already know the answers or you already know how things are meant to be. So stay in that state of wonder. Another tip is to be willing to listen, and that's listening to yourself, listening to your own guidance, listening to your own fears and worries, and to listen calmly and allow your emotions to come to the surface so that you can experience them and be curious about them. Where are they coming from? What is this here to teach me? What can I learn right now from this experience? And then as we listen and wonder, to also remember to grieve, because I think grief is one of the overwhelming emotions that's affecting all of us right now. And it may be somewhat disenfranchised grief. We might be feeling grief for people we don't know, that we've never met in Ukraine, for families that are suffering, and for these images that we're seeing and stories we're hearing of what's happening to them. We may feel overwhelming grief on their behalf that has nowhere to go. So we may not know how to sit with our grief, because it's not a personal grief as much as it is a communal grief for the whole. So be willing to experience your own grief, allow it to arise, allow it to be present, and allow your grief to be connected to your love, to know that the more you love, the more you will feel grief. But grief itself is not something to be afraid of. Grief is a beautiful expression of love and loss in the world, and it's okay to sit with your own grief, and it's okay to listen to it and wonder about it and allow it to be present, and then to begin to shower your grief with feelings of love. So one of the ways to handle our distress when we hear a story of someone in Ukraine and what they're experiencing, or even a story about our planet and the climate change that's happening, is to experience the grief and then begin to radiate love to that place of grief and share our love as much as possible. Those concentric circles of love expand the love that we're able to put out there. So we're sending the love to that mother and her child in Ukraine, and we're sending the love to that community that is being burned by a wildfire that's out of control. We're sending our love wherever it needs to go. Feel the grief and send the love. And part of this entire process also is to be able to forgive, because as we're looking at all of these shadow issues and pain and allowing them to come to the surface, one part of being able to love even more deeply and more broadly, to expand our love, is the ability to forgive, first of all, ourselves. We go back to that circle again. We have to start with ourselves. We have to forgive ourselves for not being perfect, forgive ourselves for any mistakes we feel we've made, for any times when we didn't behave the way we wish we could have, when we might have fallen short of our own goals and our ideals and our values for ourselves. We have to be willing to forgive ourselves for feeling helpless and powerless in this moment, for feeling like there's not very much that we can do to make a difference or to help. So begin there, forgive ourselves, and be willing to extend that forgiveness again in the concentric circles as you are expanding love. Along with it, send out this openness and the acceptance of forgiveness and a willingness to forgive the people in our lives who also fall short, who may have caused us pain. Be willing to extend forgiveness to them. Now, ultimately, of course, if we're expanding this circle of love and forgiveness, once again, we come to that outer ring of opponents, the people that we feel are doing harm in the world, the people we feel that are bringing evil into the world and negativity and causing harm to others. And again, how do we love them? How do we forgive them? Once again, we're not talking about idiot love or idiot forgiveness here, because part of love, fierce love, is holding people accountable, as I said before. But it is possible, there is a way to hold people accountable for their behavior and to seek justice, but without hating the people that we're holding accountable. It is possible to have a loving regard for those people, to recognize their humanity, and to choose that I myself don't want to carry ill will toward those people, but I will stand up firmly and fiercely as a warrior for love to say those people who have harmed others do need to be held accountable. But I myself am not going to be in a position of hating those people. I will allow for the fact that they're part of humanity. They are part of this communal collection of human beings that are all existing here together. So now that, for me, trips me up a lot of times when I get to a point of thinking about that great expanse of love. That is the goal, ultimately, to be at a place of being able to embrace all of the opponents in this big circle. And I can't say that I'm there yet. I'm just saying I recognize moving in that direction, but I may not be there and may not be able to do it at all times. So like I said, we have to allow ourselves to not have all the answers, to not be able to love as fully as we would like to love. We're human too, and this is a work in progress. So along with forgiveness, which again, it's not idiot forgiveness. It is forgiveness, again, that holds people accountable, just like fierce love. We also need to have an attitude of grace. And I guess we could think of grace as part of this forgiveness, but grace is recognizing that there are things happening in the universe that are beyond my comprehension, that are bigger than me, that I don't fully understand, that I can't explain. And I will allow for that mystery to be present in everything that I do, and to know that I will not always understand it, but I will appreciate and value that there is grace in this universe, and I I benefit from grace myself, and I want to allow all other life to benefit from grace as well, and to simply acknowledge that grace is present, and I want to participate in the grace that exists in the universe. And then lastly, to experience gratitude as much as possible. I've talked about that a lot, but and there are many different ways of working on gratitude, like keeping a journal or just stopping during the day to think of what matters to you and what you're grateful for in your life right now. Writing letters, calling people to thank them, just remembering to say thank you for the littlest things. Like I have this practice when I go to the grocery store. I usually go through the self-checkout lane. So, because I love checking out my own groceries and packing them in the bag the way I want to. I really like that. But there's always a person who is kind of monitoring that self-checkout area. And even if that person, I haven't interacted with them at all while I've been checking out, I make an intentional point of going up to them when I'm leaving the store and saying thank you. And saying sometimes thank you for being here. Thank you for the work that you're doing today. So same thing if I go through the line and have a cashier, I always make sure I thank them for being there and for the help that they're giving me. That's a silly, simple little thing, but always being in that state of being grateful for the people around us who make life better for us, who are helping us, and grateful for all of these amazing advantages that we have in our lives right now. When we look at what's happening to people in Ukraine, how could we be anything but grateful every single day that we have a roof over our heads, that we feel safe in our beds at night when we're asleep? We're not listening to sirens and bombs and missiles exploding around us, and we don't fear for our very lives from moment to moment. Nothing but gratitude to be in this place right now, right here where I am. And from that gratitude, extending love and positive wishes and grace to all who are in harm's way right now. So those are just some thoughts I wanted to share with you on cultivating love in a time of fear. I know it's scary for all of us right now. And every time I start talking about it, I feel the fear rising within me. I feel my heart rate speed up a little bit, even as I'm giving this talk. So for all of us, this is something challenging for us to work on right now. But I hope that this can be helpful to you for overcoming fear so that you can help spread love, because the world needs it really desperately right now. Be in that state of love as much as you can, as often as you can, and focus on radiating love wherever you go. So I hope this is helpful to you, and I'll be back next week with some more thoughts. So until then, remember that we are here for love. That's really that could be the entire purpose and mission and goal for every one of our lives, just to learn how to expand our circles of love. So keep your mind on love as much as you can. Face your own fear. Be ready for whatever life brings you next, and just love every moment of your very precious life. Bye-bye.